Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga Texas construction update video. With all of the changes and construction that is going on at Giga Texas, it can be very difficult to keep track of it all. So I thought I would give a top-level overview and kind of a grand tour through the key areas around Giga Texas that are seeing a lot of this change. Now, I have covered all of this in much greater detail on previous videos, and you can take a look at those if you'd like more information. Now, we'll be using this map with all of these various color-coded items. Also, this legend on the left, all of the arrowed items are what we're going to cover today. And hopefully at the end of this video, it'll really help you understand all of the changes and what is going on here at Giga Texas. We're starting off on the west side of the Central Highway at the West Support Facility, which also houses the West Warehouse on Wheels Yard, the future end-of-line facility, and the future car transportation area. I've labeled all of these major construction projects on this side here, and I've also put a dotted line around each of them to help make it a little bit more clear. Now, in the far southwest, I noticed very recently a new clearing that is underway, and this is a good image of that. What do you think that they're building here? Moving north of the main factory, we will see the new permanent electrical switchyard and also the Megapack construction site. At the Megapack site, here are some of the key items that are going on right now. Now, this is going to be a 68 megapack site with 34 transformers, 125 megawatts or 250 megawatt hour capacity, and with the labels you can get a good idea of all of the various components. Now we move over to the permanent electrical switchyard and how it looks today, and also some of the labels to give you an idea of all of the various components on this particular site. Moving to the southeast of the main factory, we see where the construction site is for the multi-level parking garage. Now, one of the biggest things is the sedimentation basin in the upper left is part of the water management system for Giga Texas, and it had an outfall channel or a drainage channel on the left of the screen, as you can see. That has been relocated now to the right of the screen, and they're preparing the entire grade over where that outfall channel used to be. I put a dotted line here so you can get a pretty good idea of where the construction project will commence. Moving back across the Central Highway, we take a look at Area 6. This is where Tesla Road is being widened, a new intersection is being made, and also a new north-south road. This is what the widened area of Tesla Road looks like, and that new intersection that they're constructing where it meets Farm to Market 973. On the south side, we can also see where a new underground water management system has been installed. Here, we're looking to the south across Tesla Road at that new north-south road. It connects River Road on the south end to Tesla Road here on the north end, providing another access point for the West Support Facility. Moving east to Area 7, this is where the battery cathode complex of structures is currently under construction. On the west side of the battery cathode plant, this area has been significantly widened. They've built the die shop, they've done a lot of plumbing work, and they're also preparing for some additional future construction. On the east side, we see these new facilities, the crash test facility, the Wade pit, also the cell test and recycle lab, and a material staging and future development area to the north. Further to the north, Area 10 is where it is permitted for the North Logistics Lot and warehouse construction projects. This is what this location looks like right now. It's also being used for temporary material staging. There will be a future road, and also the old farmhouse is being used as a temporary Tesla security outpost. With this dotted line and other illustrations, give you an idea how that road and how the construction site appears. Area 11 is the current rental equipment and staging location, also future development, and where the road will go through as well. Here's a good image showing a part of this area. On the bottom of the screen, you can see some concrete sections that was ripped up from the south end of the building, also some areas that was already filled in previously. And with these overlays, this gives you an idea where that road will go through it, also where that filled in area looks like. Looking sort of to the northwest, this gives you an idea of what this section looks like as well, also with the overlays where that fill has been done and also the future road. And finally, we go to the south end of the main building where the extension work is underway. And as you can see, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. They've done the Stamping 2 extension. They will be extending the building about 400 feet or 120 meters. This overlay gives you an idea of what the south end may look like when it is completed. Also on the top of the screen is the West Support Facility across the main highway. Well, there you have it. I did mention that there is a lot of projects, change, and construction going on here at Giga Texas, and hopefully this brief overview of each of these areas with the narration, the information, the maps, and also the labels was helpful. If you do want more in-depth information on each of these areas, please take a look at some of my previous videos. Otherwise, I hope that you found this helpful and informative, and thank you very much for watching. So let's get into the drone, fly around Giga Texas, and see what's changed today. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga Texas. Good morning here at Giga Texas. It's a nice and sunny morning. A lot of great things to see. We're going to start off here on the west side of the highway, and I'm going to be visiting most of the sites that we discussed in the video intro. So if you didn't see that, I would go back and watch it, and then you'll understand some of the things that we're talking about here. Now, the end-of-line facility is coming along pretty well. You can see that the footings are mostly done. A lot of the trenching and the plumbing work is continuing to be installed here in this main site. On the upper right of the screen, you can see some of the steel that has been brought down here that I think is going to be used for the superstructure of the end-of-line building. But we'll see. It is being stored kind of a good distance away, but it's just definitely something to be watching. But with this close-in view, you can get a really good sense of the trench work, the plumbing work, and other work that is being done to prepare this site so that we can start seeing some vertical assembly of the steel structure. And as we continue to fly towards the south end of the end-of-line building, we can also see a large area of the earthwork continuing at the top of the screen. It's going to be leveling out this grade all the way across this section, and it will join into the west warehouse on wheels, which is just behind the drone at this vantage point. But as I continue to turn around, you can see in the top of the screen is where the new vehicle staging and transportation lot will be. And then of course, here is the end-of-line structure. This wider shot gives you a really good idea of how this side continues to transform. The middle of the screen is where that section is getting more and more dirt to level the grade and to make sure it's contiguous with the warehouse on wheels, which is where all the trailers are located now. The central road continues to have its work being done to prepare for asphalt. They're also putting in some kind of small water detention ponds on either side of the road. And then here across the parking lot for all of the contractor vehicles, we can see that new clearing location, and it is continuing to be developed, and they're getting rid of more of those hills and ponds and flattening out that location. So yet another area to be watching as things develop. At the middle of the screen, you can see that there is actually a new water detention pond that has been made right here at the south end of the warehouse on wheels. And that is where we saw some of the earthwork being done earlier last week, and now we know what that was. So let's get ready to go over the road, and we'll resume the narration on the other side. And here we resume that video, taking a look at the south end, where you can see the River Road extension is now being actively used by vehicles. And also, it looks like there's some earthwork being done on the south of it, right next to the tree line. And all of the materials here have been moved away several weeks ago, so it looks like further development. And we'll probably, hopefully, start seeing the lower level power lines removed into this section. Now, the intersection here where River Road will turn to the north along the east side of the building, and also continuing to the east into the tree line where the new multi-level parking garage will be. It looks like all of the concrete here has been poured, and some of the median work continues. As we fly over the power lines, and I'll drop down on this south end, we'll get a good view of the work that's going on to prepare this grade for the building extension. This is another one of the drills for the CFA piles, And the interesting thing is on the left-hand side, one of the cranes that is used to lift the rebar cages that goes into the bores is actually laying on the ground. So I don't know if they're extending it or what the issue is. But here's a good close-in view of the crane that has the drill for that CFA pile itself, and then of course the crane on the left that's laying down, and looks like they're doing some work to it. And this view really gives you a good kind of impression of what is going on with this particular crane. As I zoom back out, this gives you a wider view of more of the activity that's going on here on the south side. And in addition, there's a big change that I want to talk about, and it has to do with that well or the cistern that we've been talking about for a long time. Now, I mentioned that at some point it was going to be cut down to grade, and that's exactly what's happened. On the left-hand side of the screen, you can see two of those pipe segments. Those have actually been what was cut out. And here you can see how the kind of that cap on top of the well is now level with the grade, and they're also lowering down those manhole covers with that excavator. And this really is great to see because we've been talking about this for a long time. I've been expecting to see this, and it has now finally happened. So it also answers the question what they were going to do with the overall grade for this construction, and this gives us a really good insight into what that's going to be. As we continue over towards the two temporary platforms, it's just a lot of materials being delivered today. One of the ones I'll point out is these silver items in kind of the center of the screen. I think that these are essentially metal studs that are being put in where the windows were removed for a temporary wall. And we'll see that here in just a second. We also see some pipes being brought in on top of that tall platform, and then here we see some more materials being brought in onto this shorter platform. Now, as I mentioned about those steel studs, if you look at the corner of the building, you can see that some of them are being installed where the wall panels were removed, and also actually where the windows were removed. And I think, again, this is going to be a temporary wall that'll be in place while the construction is going on. But this is a really good view of what that looks like. And of course, this is a good low-level view of what the south end appears like with all of the work that's going on the graded area. As I turn back to the building, one of the things I want to show you is you can see these kind of brownish or red staircases. These have been added very recently. This area used to be just an open section, and now it's being turned into a stairwell. And the workers give you a really good idea of scale for these stairs in this section of the building. As I turn back towards the east, we'll fight the sun just a little, but I want to also just give you a good view of what's going on the ground level here, and some of the work that's also continuing to be done on those exterior walls. As I pan around just to make sure that we're clear, I'll look back at where the Stamping 2 extension work is continuing. That kind of steel, smaller scaffolding on the steel structure itself, I'm thinking that what we're going to see eventually is a plastic temporary wall put up here to just keep it out of the elements while construction is going on. And speaking of which, you can see here, looks like more trenching is being done. It may be for conduit. It also may be to continue the work further to the south now that this steel structure is in place. So I'm going to bring the drone up, and we'll fly up over the power lines and give you a good view of the south end from a higher altitude, and then we'll look at some other sites around Giga Texas. Bottom of the screen, we can see more concrete's being poured onto that road segment that extends from River Road up to this section. We also see more of the white stain has been installed now just past that large door that is closing at the end of the stamping machine structure. I'm going to pull away because I want to show you the progress here at the multi-level parking garage site. The big thing you'll note right in the middle of the screen is where the old outfall channel used to be. It's now continuing to be filled in, and it's eventually going to be all level. You can also see on the left-hand side of the screen at the bottom, right by the tree line, where that diversion channel has been added. You can also see those segments of riprap those kind of stones in the middle, and that's just to help with the flow of the water. We also see that some of the graded section is getting some gravel mix in the middle, kind of that rectangular area, and I believe that this is all going to continue from here over towards the factory in a large rectangle. At the bottom of the screen we see continued work to add more level grade on this side. And this used to have trees, just like what you see on the left of the screen, but all of this has been recently removed, and the work is moving on pretty quickly to get this section graded out. And this is how it looks today. It's definitely expanding. Now we're going to turn back towards the new car testing and calibration lot. We'll fly over the wind tunnel on the right and the Rainmaker testing device on the left, the helicopter pad. But what I really want to show you is a very interesting video of a Cybertruck departing from these superchargers. Now I actually captured this earlier, but I spliced it back in here to make the video make sense. But I took the opportunity when it was available to me, and I was very fortunate to be able to get this view of the Cybertruck. And you can tell how it works as far as the turn radius. It's going to come up here and do a 180-degree turn, and it does it very well. You can actually see the rear wheels kind of steering as well. I think the lighting here is also great. Kind of really shows off the lines of the Cybertruck. And again, it's going to go around this roundabout, and it gives you a really good idea of how it handles turns and what it looks like in motion. So combination of just seeing it driving, the lighting, and being able to follow it along as long as I did, I think really was a fortunate stroke of luck for me today. I like this view, by the way, because it gives you an idea of the size of the Cybertruck next to a semi-truck. And also there's kind of that smaller truck nearby, and this gives you a good sense of scale. You can also see some other vehicles. Pretty soon there's going to be a Model Y coming up behind it, and this gives you another idea about the size of the Cybertruck as compared to a Model Y. Now as they continue to get ready to process through this gate, we're going to follow this continued along the road to the south, just paralleling the east side of the building. And we're going to watch where it enters into the factory. The interesting thing is where it will enter is where the end of line used to be before it was temporarily moved over to the west side of the building. And that tells me possibly that the internal organization of the general assembly lines for the Cybertruck are that the exit point may now be coming over here. We also see some other Model Ys kind of entering the same area. So it really does hint that there's some internal changes or reorganization going on as they continue to assemble general assembly lines 2 and 3. But anyway, I hope that you enjoyed that view of the Cybertruck driving around here at Giga Texas in broad light with a really good ability to follow it along and see it in action. So while we're here, I'm going to turn back over towards the new car staging and transportation lot. And in addition to quite a bit of Model Ys here and also trucks picking them up, there is another Cybertruck here, and it's still undercover. I'll bring the drone down in closer and it'll give you some good views of it. And I think with the Model Ys around it, it gives you a really good sense of the scale. And so to help you with that even further, I'm going to try to point the drone straight down, or as much as I can, so you can get a really good close-in view of the comparison between a Cybertruck and a Model Y in the same parking lot on the same conditions. And even though the bumpers aren't completely matched up, you can definitely tell the Cybertruck is a lot longer than the Model Ys are. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed these views. 2 different Cybertrucks, one in motion, one covered here at Giga Texas today. So the overflow lot looks like it's got some cars in it, not super busy. The TKS paint system parts are still waiting over by where the old house complex used to be. And here the die shop and the battery cathode plant shows a lot of activity, specifically here on the east side. On the bottom of the screen, you can see that there's a trench box and some metal or steel corrugated pipe that's being installed. This is part of the water management system for this entire complex. So it's really great to see that's going on. The structure on the left is the equipment room, which will have the motors to pull the cable that you can see going through that trench. And that'll go underneath here where the workers are building the crash wall, and also the pit where the cameras will be. And this is where crash testing is going to take place. And specifically, this is where the cars are actually going to hit the wall for that crash testing. And it's really great to see the progress and the speed that they are going through to make this happen. Giving you a good view into this opening where we saw that 7-story platform and equipment recently slid inside. And in my previous video, I actually show you some inside views of what it looks like. As I pull back around onto the east side again, on the left, you can see more of that steel corrugated pipe for the underground water management system being installed. Most of the kind of rounded roof has been installed here on the crash test facility. Another one of those small buildings on this end. And also the 2 crashed Model X's that were here previously have been moved. I think they've been moved inside the crash test facility. The wade pit is empty right now. We did see that it was being tested with water a few videos ago. But this is how it looks today. And again, there's a lot of activity going on here on the east side. Looks like more work in and around the cell test lab, that small steel structure on the left as well. The north end of the building continues to have the final window treatment put in, also those receiving doors and that concrete apron as well. I'm going to fly further to the north because I want to show you some more of the sections that we talked about in the intro. Now, right in the middle of the screen, at the bottom of the screen, is that large clearing. It used to have a large hill that's been removed. Now we can see that pit that has taken its place. In addition to that, we see more trees being removed on this section, more of the dirt being excavated as well. This whole northern side is just growing larger. And on the right-hand side of the screen, and this is where part of that new road will be constructed. And that new road is going to extend kind of on the right-hand side of the screen, now up through the middle of the screen through that large rectangular lot, and it will continue over to State Highway 130. And this gives you a really good view of those areas where we talked in the intro about not only the road, but that north logistics lot as well. But as I give you this kind of a larger view, this gives you a great idea of how this section continues to transform and just how much dirt is being removed from here. Most of it's being moved to the west side of the highway for that graded section between the warehouse on wheels and the end-of-line facility we talked about earlier. As we approach the north end of the battery cathode plant again, there's another new development that I want to point out. Next to this small pond, you can see that blue structure that's kind of under the grade. This is that area where I told you that it's permitted for a lift station. I believe what we're seeing is the initial construction of that lift station. There's also some excavators here moving some of the dirt away from this area, and some of it's being put into where I think we're going to see this pond filled in. In fact, there's a pump that's trying to empty out the water of the pond, so I would expect to see very soon that the graded area continues over at least to where the hills and the trees are to continue to expand this west side. As we fly over the west side, I'm going to try to take advantage of some of the lighting, just give you a little bit different view of the chiller plant on the left and its current state of assembly. It continues to see a lot of work. It's just very slow going. And then here, I'll give you a good zoom in on the north side of the die shop. Looks like they're putting some of these white structures. There's 2 tanks and then kind of a U-shaped structure. It's wider than the door, so it almost suggests that it's going to be staying on the outside, at least as how it's being assembled right now. So I'm not sure what it is, but it's very interesting to see that development. So let's fly over to the electrical switch yard and take a look at the work that's going on there today. Work on the underground vault is continuing at a pretty brisk pace. It looks like the final segment of concrete has been poured on the right-hand side. It's got some cover on it to help with the curing. The middle section, you can see that rectangular opening. That's where another one of those white trailers will be added. On the left-hand top of the screen, you can see how the conduit that extends over to the mega pack is continuing to see some work, and it looks like they're getting ready to tie it into this underground vault. And ultimately, there should be 3 of those white trailers, or kind of like control rooms, and that's where they're going to take the electrical wires that go through the conduit, through the bottom of the vault, up into those trailers, and then it will connect over to the electrical switch yard. You can also see just more activity with the crews moving some of the formwork away now that most of the concrete has been poured. And I also would expect to see that temporary retaining wall now start to be disassembled, at least the rest of it, as the concrete structure is completed. As we fly up over the power lines, we get a good view of the Megapack site. On the left-hand side, under the power lines, is where conduit is going over to where that vault is. And then here at the bottom of the screen, we see more conduit that's going to go to the north end of the electrical switch yard. And here is a zoom in to see the work on the electronic components here. Some of these are circuit breakers, some of them are insulators. We see that large transformer with kind of the radiators on the side to help it cool. And then that tank, and it has an oil mix in it, and that's part of what is used to cool the transformer as it operates. We can also see these 6 smaller circuit breakers, those rectangular items that have been installed and connected now. And then here, the 68 megapacks, 34 transformers, continues to see the wiring installed. You can see a lot of it now on the left-hand side of the screen. On the right-hand side of the screen, most of that wiring has now been completed. And another thing that I want to show you here as I pivot around is work on the perimeter fence is continuing. You can see some of the workers right now adding to the south end. The west side has got most of the poles installed. And I'm not sure if it doesn't look like the concrete has been poured quite yet, but it does look like small footings. So anyway, the perimeter fence is really coming along. And as I mentioned before, that's one of the prerequisites that they have to have before they can energize, test, and then certify the Megapack site. So as we fly towards the south, looking to the north, we're going to fly up over the power lines. I want to give you a good view of this north parking lot, and specifically what I want to show you is right here, the parking lot closest to the screen. You can tell that they moved almost all of the casting racks away, and now they're using it for more parking. So that is a big change. One other thing that I want to show you here at the north end of the building is that on the 4th floor platform, a very large item has been delivered and put up by the crane, and now the crews are pushing it inside. And can't quite see, I think it's cam-fill, and if it is, that's an air handling system. We've seen similar cam-fill air handling systems installed in the 3rd and 2nd floor of General Assembly. Also, next to this truck that has a bunch of rebar, all of the steel items that have been stored out here have now been moved inside. That gives you a really good indication of the construction that is continuing inside. The fact that there's rebar here tells me that at some point we may see some concrete trucks arriving into that section to complete the work that they're doing on the inside to enhance the production capability of the 4680s. Looking across the highway, this is that section next to these materials where the Central Road continues all the way to the south to River Road, and it will connect here to Tesla Road. And then on the other side, up by where you see that truck going by on that highway, that's Farm to Market 973. This is where Tesla Road is being widened, and that intersection is being improved as well. So this is a good kind of a long view of this entire section. Again, we did talk about this in the video intro as well. And if you didn't take a look at that, I would go back and go through that intro just so you get an idea of what all of this is. Now in the distance, you can actually see the airport and the control tower for Austin Bergstrom International Airport. And that's how close it is here to Giga Texas. So otherwise, pretty good view of a lot of sites today with the intro and the discussion of all of the construction as well. I hope that you found that helpful and useful. And of course, the Cybertruck cameos didn't hurt as well. Thank you very much for your support, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. Take care.